It's the X of 52 podcast. We are back live for night 2 of the NFL Draft Extravaganza here on the channel. My name is Jake Louque. We are brought to you by Jimmy's Famous Seafood. Spenny will be joining us at some point tonight. I think he's out at a previous dinner engagement, so I'm not exactly sure what his timeline is going to be. I've got a link out to a couple of different potential guests, Cole being one of them, but for right now, it's kind of just going to be me hanging in here as the draft rolls on with the Ravens pick coming up very shortly. I'm seeing on the screen right now, Dolphins pick is in. I'm sure that's probably already been made and blasted out onto Twitter there. And then you've got the Jets right in front of them. I'll pop up Twitter and see if I can see that Dolphins pick. See what I can find. Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker to Miami. So let me pull up my tracker here. I'll run through what's gone down in the beginning of the second round here. So Niners kick it off with a bit of a surprise in Dejon Stribling, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss. That is something that shouldn't necessarily surprise people, that an Ole Miss wide receiver went in the second round. It feels like that happens every year. Kind of a traitsy, toolsy guy that people maybe are looking at as a bit of a reach. But I feel like we've seen a few of those. Like I'm not as dialed in into like the second and mid rounds this year as I would like to be, but some of these names shocks me a little bit, and it's going to leave some name brands up here as the Ravens are about to be on the clock. You've got Chase Bizantis, the guard out of Texas A&M, going to the Cardinals. TJ Parker, the edge from Clemson. I actually like that pick, going to Buffalo. Caden McDonald, fun story, was actually at the draft, didn't get picked last night, hung back around, and they got picked by the Texans. Going to join a nasty defense there. Colton Hood, corner out of Tennessee, going to the Giants. Traden Stukes, the DB from Arizona, winding up the Raiders. Brownie's making a nice little pick with Denzel Boston, the big wide receiver out of Washington. So they double up on the wide receiver position there, pair him up with KC Concepcion and Shedeur Sanders, evidently. So I don't know. You know, I feel like the Browns are kind of waiting for the savior to arrive, but they're doing everything they can to build around that eventual guy right now. I like their draft so far, as well as getting Spencer Fano. R. Mason Thomas, the edge out of Oklahoma, going to the Chiefs at 8. That one shocked me a little bit as well. From what I was reading, it looked like he was another guy that didn't have necessarily the measurables. I think arm length in particular was an issue, but he's going to Kansas City. And then Cassius Howell, edge out of Texas A&M, going to the Bengals. And then Kristen Miller, DT, going to Georgia, as we've got the Dolphins pick coming up now on TV. And let me see if I can get myself caught up on X, the Everything app, because as we were talking about last night, like things in, oh yes, Jacob Rodriguez, I already said that. But as we were talking about last night, things can get a little wonky as far as picks being announced on the broadcast versus what you're seeing on Twitter. It's gonna get a little wild tonight. So just be aware of that. Glenn D2345, Jake, what's up? Going solo on this one. Yeah, Glenn, Spenny, I think, is out to dinner right now. So I'm just gonna be chilling. It's gonna be a pretty low-key, lo-fi kind of start to the stream here. I wanted to fire it up before the Ravens made their pick, so I could engage with the chat a little bit and see what happened, see what people had to say, who they wanted, who they think it's going to be, all that good stuff, what they think of the picks so far. And like I said, I wouldn't say I'm like underwhelmed by some of the names, but it's just not those like name brand Howie Roseman type names that you see. Like, you know how the Eagles are always picking the name brand guys, and like, I guess to their credit, they usually hit, but I don't know. It's been a weird draft so far, and I feel like that's continuing throughout these first several picks. Brock P 4300, hoping for another offensive player. Wouldn't be surprised if we went corner. So let me pull up a big board here if I can find one. A live big board, as one might say. Yep, best remaining players, ESPN. And I've also got the Orioles game on here in the background too. So I'm going to try not to have my attention diverted too much. I'll try to mix in the chat a little bit. It's good, like I said, it's going to be a little more lo-fi. It's going to be kind of just chilling with me to start things out here. So bear with me on that. Yeah, Jermod McCoy, a lot of people are hot on him. He's a guy that remains. Christian Gonzalez was the Matt Miller professional comp that I'm seeing. But yeah, I mean, there's another DB, and we had, who was it here in the chat? Rock P saying he wouldn't be surprised if they went corner. So another one to keep an eye on. Lions pick is in just ahead of the Ravens now. already being announced by one Calvin Johnson. Great to see Megatron. Let's see who the Lions go with as the Ravens are coming up on the clock. Derek Moore out of Michigan. They love their Michigan guys. Strong hands, demolishes tight ends. Senior Bowl bull rush. Derek Moore, edge out of Michigan, going to the Lions. So as it breaks down for the Ravens, I'm seeing Avion Terrell out of Clemson, a corner. McCoy, I already mentioned the corner available. Matt Miller has Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, safety out of Toledo. I don't know if I see them going safety. And then Zion Young was a big name that I was watching. That's the edge out of Missouri. That's who Jamison Hensley, I think, tweeted that he had them picking at 45 here tonight. So that'll be one to watch. I was looking at his comp from Lance Zierlein. He said Zadarius Smith. So I feel like fans would be a big fan of that. So, yeah, so Detroit jumped us here from Zach GR. So maybe they thought that Derek Moore was a target for the Ravens. And with him being an edge, does that indicate that maybe they're going to just say, hey, we'll go get our next edge or on the board and get Zion Young, something like that? Kelly McCoy, sad Cleveland took Boston. Yeah, Boston, that would have been a lot of fun. I feel like they probably do take a receiver at some point, but part of me also thinks that they're pretty comfortable with what they have up top with Zay and even with Bateman's down year last year. And they probably like Tez Walker a little bit too. I know Spenny and I were talking about some of his weaknesses last night, but I think they wouldn't, I don't think they would mind letting him kind of flourish into the expanded role a little bit and then just kind of sign a veteran and roll with that and draft a developmental guy a little bit later. Brock P says so many edges just went off the board this round. Yeah, totally. It's just kind of one of those meat and potatoes type drafts. Like, it doesn't feel super exciting. I don't know. Got Javrami. Am I unk now? It's reached the point where I don't know almost anyone eligible for the draft anymore. LOL. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same way the last couple of years in particular. I just feel like there hasn't been a ton of juice around the draft. Like, when draft day itself rolls up, it's still a great TV product, and I love to just kind of sit down and, chill with you guys and, watch the picks roll in. I think it's still a fantastic TV product, but as far as like lead up to the draft, I feel like we haven't had like the super exciting storylines. I think like certainly this year, it was super locked in as far as what was going to happen at the top with quarterback. I feel like that's been a little bit of a problem in recent years. I remember like Burrow was a lock in 2020. T-Law was a lock, I think, right after him. It's just kind of an issue. Like, I wish there could be a little bit more intrigue at the top there more often, but that's not something you can manufacture. And trust me, the NFL, if they could manufacture that drama, they would. But that's just, you can't fake that. They manufacture so much around the draft. That's one you cannot fake. As the Ravens pick is now coming up. And there it is, Zion Young. Ravens are selecting Missouri outside linebacker Zion Young from Jeff Zrebeck here. Let me pull up his profile. I had it up a second ago. Bear with me yet again. Okay, so out of Missouri, we've got a 6.4 prospect grade here from Lance Zierlein. Will become good starter within 2 years. Hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. Measurables are 6 foot or 6'5" and 3/4, 262 pounds, 33-inch arms, 9.5-inch hands. Production score of 80, that gets him in the green. Athleticism score of 62, that's in the yellow. Total score 72. 2026 Combine DE Edge rank 12th. Started out at Michigan State, played in 8 games with 2 starts in his freshman year in 2022. 2023, second year there, played in all 12 games with 9 starts, 26 tackles, 4.5 TFLs, 1.5 sacks. 2024 at Mizzou, I believe. Started all 13 games, 42 tackles, 5.5 TFLs, 2.5 sacks, 3 PBUs, forced fumble. And then 2025, this past year, first team all SEC, led team with 16.5 TFLs, 2 forced fumbles, started all 13 games, 42 tackles, 6.5 sacks, 2 PBUs. And then actually I see here arrested in December on suspicion of DWI. That's all from Chad Reuter. So yeah, I guess that might be a little bit of a character red flag there. And like we were talking about last night with them pulling the trigger on Mike Green, maybe they're a little bit more comfortable with that. And they're a little bit more comfortable with their culture to bring these guys in and shepherd them along. Javrami, walk me through this pick, elder brother Jake. I will try to do so. I definitely know the name of Young. I feel like I've caught his highlights here and there. I was not watching a ton of Mizzou football, but just to catch you up a little bit here, as Samuel Basayo hits a homer off of Brian Bayo, Orioles just absolutely pouring it on the Red Sox. But Lance Zierlein had him projected for rounds 1 and 2. His NFL comparison, like I said, Zadarius Smith overview. Long, well-built edge rusher with the size, strength, and temperament engineered for trench battles at the next level. Young is a fiery alpha who brings immense energy to the field and locker room. He majors in block destruction using base power and aggression to play through opponents. He extends and locks out as an edge setter and sheds when needed, but his pursuit speed and range are average. He has the power to bull rush or drive through edges, but lacks instincts and variety in his rush approach. His NFL pressure production will lag behind without better go-to moves and counters. Young's physical tools and rugged demeanor give him a chance to be an instant run-stopping upgrade with average rush. So we were talking last night about Bain as being kind of a potential Upshaw comparison, and that's kind of what this sounds like to me. This sounds like maybe a classic Ravens pick, and smarter people that have watched more of his tape can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but just a production guy. Big dude from an SEC school. I know it's Missouri, but it's still in the SEC, who's just going to, go out there with his motor and his toughness and put on it. As Mark Ingram is just putting on an absolute show as he announces the pick here. Let me just pause this real quick to see if I can get some audio. I'll at least get it for myself because I want to hear Mark Ingram. This chicanery is how this can happen, which I'm okay with. Javrami, what is the deal with modern college students and picking up driving charges? It's a good question, man. I really don't know. You'd probably want to start with the University of Georgia, but obviously Zion Young being a Missouri guy, I couldn't tell you. Maybe it's the phones, but it also feels like a lot of this is occurring under the influence, and I don't know, man. It's not good stuff. Cuts to Zion Young. He's got his black shirt on. His hater blocker is covering up that he is crying. That is a cool scene. I'm watching the NFL Network game. I don't know if you guys are on that or ESPN, but it looks like he might have been a little bit sad there for a second, but it looked like he was kind of put on a stoic face. DJ saying power through contact, showing a little highlight package here. Yeah, so just listening to the breakdown there from DJ, from Charles Davis, it sounds like you're looking at a power player. They were saying speed versus power. He's much more power. And the one thing that would concern me for his rookie year is like that does seem like something that is a little bit harder to translate. But is speed easier to translate? I don't know, because it felt like Mike Green was looked at as more of a speed player. Spenny used to say that he was a guy who had a rocket ship strapped to his ass, and he was kind of that overwhelm you with speed. It sounds like Zion Young is maybe the opposite, overwhelm you with power, and is going to be strong against the run. I think if he is strong against the run and he contributes a couple of sacks here, that's going to be a very good rookie season for a guy who's going to be playing opposite Trey Hendrickson, maybe, who is going to be expected to bring you sack production and not give you a ton in the run game. And then with Matabike coming back, that should take a little bit of pressure off of him as well. And then pairing him up with Mike Green, who's going to be seasoned as a second-year player, and you're going to want to see more sack production out of him. Seems like he's kind of entering maybe third or fourth in line as a guy that you're going to be relying upon, and also plenty of time to make more additions. I know as far as, the front seven, there was speculation that they're trying to bring DJ Reader into the building. It sounds like it might be down to him and the Giants. And it sounds like there was even optimism from the Giants standpoint that they're going to be able to bring Reeder in. So yeah, I don't know. It just feels like another one where you pick what was probably your best player available at a position of need. And we were talking about this last night with their first pick when it came down to Vega versus Bain. It was best player available at a position of need. They were both positions of need in terms of edge or pass rush, however you want to describe it, and offensive line. But it felt like offensive line was a bigger need than edge or pass rush was. And so they went with that. And then went with a very polished prospect in Vega, who probably, very well could have been their top prospect left on their board. So Rock P says, considering that we have no edge beside Tavius that can stop the run, I think this pick checks out. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. It felt like, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it does feel like they got punked on the ground at times last year. And even just like the quick game stuff on the ground, I think back to probably both of those Steelers games where they were just making short work of them along the edges by the quick passes out to guys like Gainwell, and just showing their lack of athleticism and their lack of experience. And I know that's not exactly the run game, but those short passes out to the perimeters feel like an extension of the run game at times. So again, I don't know if Young is going to make that type of impact in year one to make all that work. I'm not 100% sure if he's going to be that starter right out of the gate for you, but it feels like a worthwhile investment. So I'll go back to his Lance Airline scouting report a little bit. Strengths: built to standard with size, musculature, and limb length. Transfers power from his hips to his hands on first contact. Punches, extends, and locks out when setting edges. Attack oriented with play strength for block deconstruction. Powers through backside cutoffs by tight ends and maintains fits on lateral block engagements with offensive tackles. Well suited for successful battles against tray blocks, OT/tight end double teams. Good upfield pace to set his speed to power conversion up. Adequate footwork and transition quickness on inside rush moves. Drives through the edge with forward lean at the top of the rush. Length, tackle strength, and body control create good tackle finishes versus the run. One common theme I'm seeing a lot here is beating up on tight ends and beating up on like chip blocks and guys that are brought in to help, which maybe that portends well, because if you got to deal with Trey Hendrickson, if you got to deal with a hopefully even better in year two Mike Green, if you got to deal with maybe another veteran they bring in, if you got to deal with Tavius Robinson, that gives him a chance to be that guy who is going to be potentially getting more favorable matchups. So Rock P says center in the third would be hype. Yeah, I agree. I think they need to draft a center at some point, even if they do bring in like a veteran or trade for a guy, a la they did with like a Jeremy Zutah back in the day. I feel like you just need to continue this youth infusion along the offensive line, because Rosengarten is pretty much a veteran now. Ronnie Stanley is a well-vested veteran. He's probably approaching the end of his career, if we're being frank about it. Simpson, he's a long-standing veteran, but he's very much a journeyman. And you got nothing at center, and you've got a rookie left guard. So I don't know if, in fact, they play Vega at left guard. That's the speculation as of right now, but we'll see. It just feels like a weird mix age-wise. Ballistic Pac-Man, PKMN. This makes me feel a lot better about passing on Bain. The draft seemed to fall well. Yeah, exactly. I think that like making this pick, it feels like they had a strategy in mind. And it feels like if they took Bain, like who's the offensive lineman that you would take right now that you would feel like really good about? I would probably say, if you were to ask me to go with Vega and Zion Young versus Bain and whoever was left on the board there, I think you would probably take what they got. I was just hoping this would be a trench-focused draft, so I'm getting what I want here from Jav Ramey. Yeah, exactly. And that's what they needed. They needed toughness. They needed nastiness. They just needed more presence. They needed to get back to Ravens football of old. A little bit of intimidation factor. They've been missing that not only this past year, but in years past, like before that. Like, I don't know. 2023, the defense was awesome. Even 2022, I think that's probably going to go down as an underrated defense. They got off to a really bad start, but then they turned things around and damn near won them that playoff game in Cincinnati. But man, 2024, there were a lot of games where they were getting punked on defense, including in the playoffs in Buffalo, where they ultimately lost. Zach GR, Jeremy Zutah is a crazy pool. Holy moly. Oh, yeah. Ian Campbell, great second pick. Indeed. Zach GR says Steelers got Bernard. I liked him. Yep. So Jeremy Bernard out of Alabama. I think it's Jeremy. I don't think it's Jeremy, but it could be. But yeah, he was a guy that a lot of people liked. Just one of those mover and shaker Alabama wide receiver types, if I'm not mistaken. I'll pull him up. Actually, I'll pull him up after I go through weaknesses on Zion. So weaknesses on Zion Young from Lance Earline: could be a little quicker with his initial hand strikes. Knee bend is average when leveraging the point of attack. Pursuit burst and top end speed are average. Lacks a go-to move to soften the rush corner. Struggles getting rid of tackles connected punch. Length of Auburn's Xavier Chaplin put his rush in neutral. Rare to see a quality counter move when his rush stalls. So it all kind of feels like what you get with a second round edge. Like a lot of athleticism, a lot of potential, a lot of power in this case from what we're hearing, but there's a lot to refine and a lot to work on. And I'm excited to see what the new coaching staff and what Minter is able to do with him. I think one thing that really hyped me up about the Vega pick was, and I was having some fun with it on Twitter, was the Dwayne Ledford. A star is born in Dwayne Ledford. I think a lot of people were excited about him and his resume that he brought here. I know I was. I wasn't familiar with his game in terms of memeability, in terms of presence, in terms of charisma, where they're handing the phone around. Everyone's all, kumbaya and very happy about, picking Vega and getting to talk to him. You've got EDC doing his typical routine. You know what 410 means, right? I told you that. Then you hand it off to Jesse PT, AI chatbot, head coach Minter. I say that with all love. Just giving the typical routine. Him talking to Declan Doyle, who just looked like a tech bro, and then handing it over to Dwayne Ledford, who was beaming literally ear to ear. I don't think I've ever seen a happier football guy in the world, and him just shouting, "What's up, big dog?" in the cell phone. Which I don't know, like maybe that's like an inside joke they had, because Vega actually on the phone with DaCosta, I think said, "What's going on, big dog?" or something like that, which is a really funny thing to say to your general manager who just drafted you. I hope they do. We should make shirts of that. "What's up, big dog?" in block lettering. I wonder if people would buy that. Put it in the chat if you would. Jav Ramey: I wonder what the concern is from the front office about finding some off-ball linebacker depth in the UDFA market. Yeah, that's one I think we'll cross that bridge when we come to it in the undrafted market. Like, I don't know if I see them spending a pick on it, because I think Buchanan has played well in his limited opportunities. I'm willing to give him a chance. Roquan is making a lot of fucking money, and like he's got to start playing like it, and that you kind of just got to roll with what you got, I think. Brock P, EDC's fit thoughts. We talked about it on the stream, and then I am glad that I mentioned it because he came out there in a shirt that I couldn't even describe. I saw another Twitter user put it brilliantly that he looked like Chairman Mao, with kind of this like all buttoned all the way to the top, like cargo pockets. It looked like a canvas shirt almost. It was just a preposterous fit from Eric once again. Not as like smart kind of tech bro-y as he was for the Minter press conference. This was almost like workwear-ish. And I'm excited to see how he dresses it down even further tonight. He should go with the George Costanza, drape himself in velvet, if it were socially acceptable. Hill is still there from Ian Campbell, the inside linebacker. Let me see if I can find him. Anthony Hill from Texas. Yeah, so looking at it right now, and I'll refresh it just to make sure this is accurate from the Matt Miller. Yeah, so Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who we mentioned from Toledo. Avion Terrell from Clemson. That is a name that I know pretty well. He's a guy that people seem to like a lot, the corner out of Clemson. Anthony Hill, who you mentioned. Eli Stowers, the tight end out of Vanderbilt. I know some people were hot on him. I was too. My brother-in-law was actually kind of talking him up as a guy that they could pick. And I wouldn't have hated it. Wouldn't have hated that at 45. It just feels like maybe a little bit luxury-ish. You don't always want to use the draft to fill for need, but like I've been saying, like throughout this whole process of the last 24 hours, best player available at a position of need. And I think Stowers, like I said, I don't know if tight end is 100% a position of need right now. You do need a lot of depth there. You lost two like very good tight ends that are, in my opinion, like starting caliber in Charlie Kohler and Isaiah Likely, and they might just well play like that in LA and in New York this year. You got Mark, still hanging around. He gets that extension. I think Mark's still got some good football in front of him. I don't know if it's great football. So you do want to backfill the position behind him a little bit. I just don't know if they need to do that in the second round. Like I think a lot of people really liked Likely and Kolar when they got picked back in, what was that, 2022? I think a lot of people really liked them, but like they fell to the fourth round. Probably a mixture of people underrating them and the position not being as valued. And I think it's like that is one position that the Ravens still really have a good eye for, and they could figure it out by picking a guy in the third or fourth, or maybe even later. And maybe just like sign a veteran off the street too. But I do like the idea of it because, like I mentioned on the show last night, like the stuff Declan Doyle was doing with Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland, like both those guys looked starting caliber. And I'm pretty sure both those guys were first round picks. So it's a little bit of a different pedigree conversation, but I don't know. Maybe if you get Mark and a third rounder and then maybe a nice trusty veteran off the streets, I feel like you'd feel pretty good about yourself. Brock P says, really deep tight end class. Feels like the Ravens feel confident in rounds 4 and 5 getting someone. And that's another aspect of it. So let me pull up the picks that they have. So obviously they had 45 already. They have 80, pick 80 in round 3. They have pick 115 in the 4th round. And then, they have 4 5th round picks, a 6th rounder and 2 7s. So it sounds like you're thinking about making your hay in that beginning of day 3 where you're picking, 115, 154, 162, and then 173 and 174 to close out that 5th round. But they just love tripling, quadrupling, quintupling up on those 4th and 5th rounders. And they've only got the 1 4th this year, but 4 5ths, maybe you could package that and move up and grab a little bit of a sleeper tight end or a sleeper playmaker to add into this offense. Because I think you're pretty close as far as skill players on offense. I know people don't always want to hear that because like you can never have enough playmakers. I totally understand that philosophy, but there was work to do in the trenches. I feel like they're like, as far as like what you can do in a draft, they might have already kind of gotten there. And you feel doubly good about that with the Matabike news. But yeah, it's just going to depend how the board falls probably as well. Panthers pick is in. Probably has been in for 20 minutes, and I'm 2 picks behind. Yeah, if there's one position I trust the Ravens with picking, it's tight ends. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mark Andrews, 3rd round pick. Like the only 1st round tight end I can think of that was really good. There might only be 2 in history with Heap and Hayden Hurst, but Heap is, only the super high pedigreed one. Dixon, I think, was a 3rd rounder. And he was like a good player, but he wasn't as good as Pitta, who went a little bit later, I think, than Dixon in that draft. Jav Ramey, hanging around is a good descriptor for Mark in the Big 26. Be nice to. I'm gonna make that a hashtag. I'm gonna make that a movement. Hashtag be nice to Mark. Because guess what? You're stuck with him. You're stuck with him, guys. I'm stuck with him too. He's aging. He is aging out of it a little bit, but he's like an old dog. You still love him, and maybe you just don't feel ready yet. Ian Campbell, I feel that way too. We need a center with this pick. So talking about pick 80. I'd have to see what the big board's lining up like. Really interested to see when the run at center will be. Let me get caught up on some of these picks as well. Falcons get Avion Terrell. Yeah, and that's AJ Terrell's younger brother. It looks like I'm seeing that from JP Acosta. I figured there was a connection there because I think AJ went to Clemson as well. That's a good pick. Panthers take Lee Hunter, D tackle out of Texas Tech. How about the Texas Tech Red Raiders and their defense? David Bailey and Lee Hunter going highly. Reminds me of Broderick Washington a little bit. You never know when these Texas Tech defense, defenders are going to be bucking their heads, but I guess they are big time this year. Zach GR says Wiggins and Zion Young were high school teammates, so great chemistry. There you go. Good pull. Georgia guys, if I'm not mistaken. Let me refresh my big board here. Yeah, Eli Stowers, I mentioned. Brandon Cease, corner. Zach Branch, Georgia wide receiver. Chris Brazell, people talking about Tennessee wide receiver. Gabe Jackus. I don't know if I'm saying that right. That's another edge out of Illinois. I feel like a guy they're not going to be looking at after just taking the eggs. CJ Allen, that's a name that I am familiar with, the Georgia linebacker. Emmanuel Pregnone, Oregon guard. That's intriguing to me. Not going to lie. Not going to lie at all. Because even if you don't want to move him into center, like there's no guarantee that like John Simpson isn't going to need to be replaced at some point this year, or you're one injury away from like really needing that. And I know Emory Jones is in the mix, so like I'm not ruling him out either, but just one of those positions, man, you can't have enough depth. I feel like we've seen it happen to them before. Keontae Scott, corner out of Miami. Jennings Dunker, the memeable tackle out of Iowa that I mentioned last night. He's 12th on Miller's remaining big board. Jake Galladay, Cincinnati linebacker. AJ Halsey, shout out to Halsey, LSU safety. Malachi Fields, I actually do like, Notre Dame wide receiver. I like the little bit I've seen of him. Eli Surratt, actually from Indiana, another guy that I don't know if he has like the athleticism, but he was so much fun to watch at Indiana in the playoffs specifically. Mark in the chat here, he was hanging with us last night, says the Lions jumped us to try to break the Michigan connection. I really like the idea of drafting more, but I'm surprised he went before Young, especially via trade up. Yeah, they might have had some. I'm curious about their intel there. Like John Harbaugh is gone, Mike McDonald not here. I don't know if there is a Michigan connection anymore. And all due respect to the great Michigan men, of which there are many, I'm happy to see that as Adley fucking Rutschman hits another homer, this one to the flag court. Hell yeah. I don't know if there is like this Michigan famed connection anymore. It feels like Penn State is sneaky making its way in there with EDC, having family go there and, doing some speaking engagements there. It seems like he's pretty tapped into the Penn State scene. Ballistic PKMN. Ravens really like Corey Bullock. They may not think center is a huge need. I need to do my background work on Corey Bullock. I know he's been in the mix for a little while now. I know they do seem to like him. Yeah, he's only 24. He's not exactly like a journeyman. And yeah, undrafted free agent in 2024. So yeah, he's been around for 2 years now. And he is a Maryland native. Corey Bullock, born September 12th, 2001. Fun fact for you. Interesting fun fact that I'm throwing out for no reason at all. Jav Ramey, I missed Simpson and his fairly consistent discipline penalties in exchange for a dog. Yeah, like you know what you're getting with John Simpson. And that is a guy that is going to have a lot of tenacity in the run game. He's going to make a lot of mistakes in pass pro. He's going to have a lot of penalties, but he's going to bring some attitude. He's going to have some piss and vinegar, which this offensive line, frankly, has severely lacked. It looked like a bunch of little boys out there last season. John Simpson's a grown man. He's got a mortgage. He's taking his trash out at 6 a.m. He's taking the kids to school. Like, that's what you're getting with my guy, Johnny Simpson. Yeah, I'm with you on this, Brock. I feel like the Ravens relying on an undrafted free agent at center would not be ideal in regards to Corey Bullock. Yeah. I know a lot of people like him, and, I get why. And he's been around for 2 years now, so it's not like you're just throwing a completely untested UDFA out there. But I want some kind of a name brand, and it might be a little bit hypocritical saying that I want like a rookie. Some kind of, even if it is like a mid-round pick with some pedigree this year, or a veteran that you can, trade for, or a guy that gets cut, something like that. I would just feel more comfortable, and I could be wrong on that. But I trust in big dog Dwayne Ledford. Whatever they choose to do, I will give them the somewhat benefit of the doubt. I gave them the benefit of the doubt last year on the offensive line, and it bit me in the ass, but I'll give them grace for this year, and I will trust in Ledford. The NFL really let the Ravens draft Vega and Zion Young. Absolutely, they did. Yeah, Bullock also killed it when he started. Yeah, he's had his moments. Jav Ramey. I don't know if Simpson has a bald head, but it feels like he should. I think he either does or he keeps it very tight. Let's look that up. Let's get to cover the real important issues. He wears a skull cap when he plays. I got a picture of him here from when he signed. No, it's not bald. No, he keeps it tight though. Not bald. Got some nice glasses and a cool chain on. I like that. I love John Simpson as a guy. I really do. Fun. Minter coaxed. Yeah, there you go. Minter coaxed Derek Moore. So that was dumb on my part. But Michigan connection, after a couple of years, it will be gone because Minter hasn't been there for 2 years now, 3 years. Rock P, we need to draft a center. Come on, y'all. He hasn't seen any regular season snaps. Like relying on a 7th round pick guard. Skull cap is also fitting. Yeah, if he were actually bald, which he's not. I don't know if it's a wave cap because he didn't have waves from the signing picture that I saw. Vikings pick is in, the Fighting Kyler Murray's. Brian O'Neill here to make the announcement. Jake Golday from Cincinnati. Guy that I mentioned on the Miller big board, which I'll go back to. Yeah, it feels like at 80 it might be opening up for a luxury. I'm seeing a lot of wide receiver here, and feels like the meat of the draft. And I've been talking about my wide receiver bubble for years. Maybe we are at that point where there's just always going to be quality guys available to you in that 3rd round and early 4th round, whatever it might be. It's interesting. Green Bay pick is in. Insiders don't have it yet. Maybe we are catching up to the TV is catching up to X, I should say. Any questions, any thoughts in the chat, throw them in there. Give us a like, give us a subscribe if you have not already. Find us on social media at X52 Podcast on X and on Instagram. Find me on X at Jake Louque. That's Louque. Where's this Green Bay pick? Sorry if I'm AJ hawking it for a minute here. I'm just trying to find some Zion Young stuff we can go over. Zach CR says take a center at 80 and then trade back for a wide receiver. Yeah, like I said, man, it looks like I'm seeing a lot of WR. A lot of WR on the remaining big board. Got this from Ryan Mink on Zion Young. The former Missouri standout is a physically imposing at over 6'5" and 267 pounds and has the production to back up his stature. A little bit of a typo there from Mink. He said a physically imposing at over 6'5" 6'5" and 267 pounds, and has the production to back up his stature. Got you on that one, Mick. Young posted 6.5 sacks and 16.5 tackles for loss last season, earning first-team All-SEC honors. Plays with physicality that will make him a strong edge setter, befitting of the Ravens brand of football. He also has the quickness to penetrate gaps as an inside rusher. Only 2 NFL teams had fewer sacks than the Ravens, 30 last season. Awful. Baltimore took an aggressive swing at fixing that by giving veteran Trey Hendrickson the biggest contract to an outside free agent in history. Now the Ravens have used major draft capital to further solidify the unit, which also includes Tavius Robinson and Mike Green, who the Ravens expect to have a breakout season. Young will add even more juice to the room. And here's another aspect of it, that Zion Young was a Senior Bowl guy. So Mink writes, the Ravens place high value in the Senior Bowl, and Young was a monster at this year's event, solidifying his status as one of the top edge rushers. Many pundits had Young as a borderline first-round prospect, yet the Ravens got him at pick number 45. The reason may be in part because of the off-the-field questions. Yeah, so here's the DWI stuff. Young was arrested and charged with suspicion of a DWI in December of 2025. Before that, he was one of 7 Michigan State players suspended for the final 4 games of the 2022 season following a post-game altercation at Michigan. However, the vocal leader was voted a team captain at Missouri last season. The youngest of 11 children in his family. Sheesh! Similar to first-round pick Vega Ioane. Young's father was in the military and introduced him to football and weightlifting at an early age. Young played prep football with Nate Wiggins at Westlake High School in Atlanta. So there's your Nate Wiggins connection. Ballistic PKMN. Everyone should give Jake's season in between a listen to. It's great football content in the off season when you're hungry for Ravens. Yeah, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. It's got its own podcast feed, actually. I think it still does. I made one for it maybe last year or 2 years ago. So yeah, if you're interested, hit me up and I'll provide you a link. It is a narrative podcast focusing on the Ravens 2006 season, but not just on that, on all the things that happened before, things that happened after. A little bit of Brian Billick talk and kind of the last days of Brian Billick, some Kyle Bowler stuff in there, Steve McNair, Ray Lewis, almost leaving town. A lot of really interesting stuff happened with that team that a lot of people look back on as, maybe the best in Ravens history. And of course, they crashed out of the first round of the playoffs as a second seed, I believe it was. So they're not remembered that way, but they were a great, great, great team. Zach GR. Zion is on Zoom and says he was taught to play smash mouth football. There you go. That's what we're talking about. Sounds a lot like Vega last night. I'll see if I can pull some of those quotes up while we're waiting. Yeah, Jameson Hensley with the Zoom screenshot, zoomed right in on Zion with the hater blocker. Soon after being drafted in the second round by the Ravens, Zion Young said, as a youngin', I was taught smash mouth football. Like I said, sounds a lot like Vega. If it's not physical football, I don't want to be a part of it. Oh, God, McAfee here to announce the Colts selection. Loudest voice in the room was a Colts representative from Pittsburgh, in Pittsburgh. Just, all things I just have no interest in, frankly. I'm good. Take it all away. Zion on what he's bringing to Baltimore. Let me know if you guys can hear this. I don't know. I don't think you can hear on my other monitor, but let me know if you hear this. A little bit of audio garble there, but if you could hear it, I'm not sure. Let me know. Sounds like just a good old fashioned Southern football player. That's what we like. Actually, those practices are going to be intense with Vega and Zion. Yeah, that'd be exciting. Excited to see if they see each other. I'm not sure how it's going to work out. If Zion would be lining up over top of him, but shit, man, the way things go with this offensive line at some time, at certain points in recent history, I wouldn't be surprised to see Vega have to make spot starts at tackle at some point. So iron will sharpen iron in that case. As CJ Allen, Georgia, goes to the Colts. That's a good pick. Interested to see what happens with the Colts this year. Is Dimes' injury, is he going to be able to come back from that immediately? Not 100% sure about the strategy with giving up those 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, Carly Gordon. I love what she's doing. I think it's very exciting to watch. I don't know if it's always like the most prudent thing. She's a very involved owner. I don't know if I would want to work for that necessarily, but they make things interesting. I'll give them that. I totally missed this too, by the way. I think somebody was talking about the Brazil game earlier, but I see this tweet from Hensley now from 33 minutes ago. It's official. The Ravens will play the Cowboys in the first NFL game in Rio on September 27th. So they've never played in Rio, the NFL. I could have sworn they already did a Brazil game. Maybe it just wasn't in Rio. Maybe it was somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know. Zion Young, I raise hell, especially on the field. And then his Twitter bio, Jonah Schaefer is pulling up. Hellraiser is the first thing in there. So that's fun. It's a lot of fun. I'll read a little bit too here from James Ogden, who I love. He's got the Red Star Baltimore, I believe it's called. Zach GR in regards to Carly Gordon. If any of us were owners, we would be doing the same thing. Maybe, man. Maybe. I always like to say that, like, if I had that kind of money, I would be retired like faster than you could like snap your fingers. I would just be on a beach somewhere. I'd be playing golf every day. I'd let like business people handle business. But that's probably why I'm not going to be early retired. That's probably why I'm never going to be a billionaire like she is. I just don't have that, insatiable hunger to run things, for better and worse. But anyway, back to James's write-up on Zion Young. Projection starting DE or OLB, who you can win with long-term. He will likely end up as an excellent run defender who plays a lot on early downs and can win modest sack production in the 8 to 10 range at the peak of his career. Strengths has the rush. I don't really need to go through strengths and weaknesses. I feel like we've already seen that with Lance. So I'll go with James is specifically a Ravens content guy. So I'll go with his Ravens fit section that he's got at the bottom here. The Ravens will still be in the market for an edge player despite bringing in Trey Hendrickson, and they could be looking at day 1 and day 2 prospects. Zion Young should be on their radar. I think Young would be an excellent complement to Trey Hendrickson and would bring a lot of what Tavius Robinson brings to the table, but with some more potential pass rush juice. Young will be the kind of run defender the Ravens love at the position, and while I don't think he will be the team's primary pass rusher in his career, I think he can become one of the best complementary players in the league, playing across from a dominant edge. So there you go. He will have that in Hendrickson, or to start his career off, as James mentions here. And that takes me back a little bit to the Upshaw comparison, where Courtney Upshaw was a little bit more of a it's interesting because coming out of college, I think he was looked at as like a pass rush specialist, but he developed more into a stout against the run, like fire hydrant type player who, got you the 5.5, 6 sacks a year at his peak. Sounds like James is even more bullish on Zion, but yeah, I think back to that, Jarrett Johnson, Courtney Upshaw, or I should say Paul Kruger, not Jarrett Johnson, Paul Kruger, Courtney Upshaw pairing, where you had one as a pass rush specialist, one is kind of that run defender type guy. I feel like that could be Mike Green and Zion Young based on all that we're reading here. That could be a fun little duo. People forget about Paul Kruger. He was a really great player who got unfortunately overpaid. He was like the classic Ravens guy that gets overpaid elsewhere and just does nothing. Which has been like less of a thing. I feel like free agency has been less of a crapshoot than it used to be. Getting word that my other monitor cannot be heard. Okay, that's fine. That actually makes it a little easier for me to just kind of listen in and not worry about the audio. Ballistic PKM. I was glad it was the Browns that overpaid. Yeah, and that was also God, that was after a Super Bowl year. So it was him. It was Donnell Ellerbe getting overpaid by the Dolphins. That was the offseason the Ravens cut Bernard Pollard, I think. Yeah, I think they got rid of him after the Super Bowl. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, there was a mass exodus, and he was like the top offender of getting overpaid. Not that I blame him or the Browns for trying, but man, that did not work out. Eli Stowers to the Eagles at 54. So there you go. He'll become the first tight end on the roster under contract for 2027 when he does his rookie deal. So Eagles doing some much needed work at tight end there, and a target for the Ravens comes off the board. But like I said, I didn't really see that as a realistic option once they made their pick at 45 and it was not him. Zion Young, let's flock together, baby. Let's get it. God bless y'all. I like that. I like it a lot. Kobe Mayo, 3-game home run streak now. Love to see that. Where are we at? Where are we at? Am I seeing it correctly that Jermon McCoy still on the board? Chris Brazell still on the board? Keontae Scott? Malachi Fields? Chris Bell. A lot of people like Chris Bell, but he's a little bit further down from what I'm seeing here. Bigger wide receiver from Louisville. 6'2", 222. Yeah, it's a thick boy. Thick boy indeed. Coming off an ACL that he suffered late last season. Possession receiver. They build the speed style and shows the ability to separate. Louisville connection. Maybe Lamar will handpick him, a la Joe Flacco handpicking Tandon Doss. Patriots. Pick being announced here at 55. Gabe Jacas. Edge out of Illinois. Fighting Illini. Wrestler, steady bull rush. Bud Dupree is the comparison there. Sounds like it could be a good pick. And boy, Vrabel, I hope he likes it because that's going to be the second to last pick that he's seeing this weekend. Homeboy's a little busy after today. Not to make light of anything. Grenard just got traded to the Eagles. Is that real? What'd they trade for him? Excuse me. Yeah, Jean Grenard. Somebody's screaming in my neighborhood. Yeah, John Grenard. I feel like there's been trade buzz about him all off season. I'm looking up him being traded, and there's like articles from a day ago that's like, was this trade leaked to the Eagles? So drop it in the chat if you got it. Yeah, I see Brian Wacker tweeting about it now. The Vikings are trading Pro Bowl pass rusher Jonathan Grenard to the Eagles in exchange for 2 third-round picks. Wow. One this year and one in 2027 per sources. Okay. Good player. Would have liked him here. Really would have liked him here. 38 career sacks. And he's also signing a 4-year, $100 million extension with $50 million guaranteed with Philly. Get your money, kid. But there goes Philly's third rounder this year and next year. So Nate Burkitcher, tight end out of Texas A&M. So looks like we might have a bit of a tight end run coming on as the Jags go and grab this guy. Looks toolsy, looks traitsy, doesn't look super fast. But maybe a nice little security blanket there for T-Law. Girlish Menace. When would you think the next quarterback gets picked? Cardinals go for someone in round 3. Maybe. I feel like the Cardinals are in just full tank mode, though, where they're just literally not even going to worry about it this year, and they want to get whoever's going to be the guy next year. I don't know if it's going to be Dante Moore or who, but I feel like they might just not even worry about it. Who are the remaining quarterbacks? Let's see if I can filter by position here. Yeah, Nussmeier. I mean, I really liked him coming into this year, but I think he had the injury. Yeah, injury in the majority of the season. He's also not as big as I thought he was. He's 6'2", 203, which isn't like small, but it's not, for a guy who is like a pocket passer like he is, I don't necessarily know if I love that size. Yeah, I liked him though. Matt Miller comps him to Andy Dalton. So he could be a worthy dart throw. It just depends on how those medicals check out. Carson Beck, another name a lot of people are throwing out. He just is so boring to me. He always has been. Drew Aller. I mean, man, this is kind of like the injured quarterback sweepstakes, the injured like former top 10 pick sweepstakes. Because Aller was a guy people were talking about as, and I know I've got a Penn State faithful, possibly still in the chat here, and a family member of mine who's a big Penn State guy who loves Drew Aller, but bad injury, and that's unfortunate for him. He could have declared earlier and probably gotten picked, but he might be waiting a little while. Klubnik is in this draft too. I mean, there's some real names. Stoyer Robinson. I watched a little bit of his Gruden QB camp. It was good. That's out of Baylor. Baylor quarterbacks, though, just don't do anything for me. Miller Moss, another fun name. God, Diego Pavia. Little Diego. Just got Johnny Manziel written all over him. Maybe not behaviorally. A little bit behaviorally, but not like all the way there. And man, the measurables. Zach GR says the Cardinals will tank for Arch next year. Yeah, maybe it'll be Arch, but I don't know, man. I haven't been like wowed by what I've seen from Arch either. And maybe I'm just holding him to like the Peyton and Eli standards. But I don't know. It's a big year for Arch Manning. I don't think if he plays like he did last year, given his last name recognition and all that, I don't think he's any danger of falling like beyond the third round, but I feel like he's got to turn it up. Like he's got to turn it up and refine some things if he wants to be like this slam dunk Andrew Luck type number 1 overall lock. That's just my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. Bears get Logan Jones at 57. So there's your center. Logan Jones was the successor to Tyler Linderbaum at Iowa. Guy a lot of people really liked. And the Bears I think they were hot for Linderbaum at one point. If I'm not mistaken, they traded for that center from the Pats, though, already. Or maybe it was the other way around. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to go back and check. But they get their center in Logan Jones. And he will not be a Raven. Zach GR says Sam Hecht is still available. So we are good. Wonder how long he'll last. Let me pull up the centers. So Matt Miller's got Sam Hecht at number 2 here. He's his 80th overall prospect. And the Ravens pick 80. So you might be onto something there, Zach. But ahead of him, Miller has Jake Slaughter from Florida. 6'5", 303. I like a big center. Something about him. Slaughter shows a good punch, and though he might not consistently move defenders, he is effective at holding his ground at the point of attack. In pass pro, Slaughter keeps his feet moving, mirroring defenders and controlling them with inside hand leverage. He keeps his feet churning and his head on a swivel in pass protection when nothing comes directly to him. Slaughter's versatility allows him to climb to the second level. Then for Sam Hecht, he plays light on his feet and displays good foot quickness on film. He also plays with good balance and core strength. Hecht has average moving power, but can anchor, mirror, and hold his weight, sustaining his blocks well. He's skilled enough to pull and get out on the edge. Hecht does a good job of climbing to the second level and latching onto defenders. Overall, he's a solid player who gets the job done. Just about all you can ask for in a second-round center, or a third-round center, I should say, for the Ravens. Logan Jones was behind both of those guys for Miller as well. So he goes to the Bears first. Connor Louque, Trey Zune, Parker Brailsford from Bama, Pat Coogan from Indiana. He was a guy who got some of the buzz in the college football playoff, named the offensive MVP in the Rose Bowl this past season, which was last awarded to an offensive lineman in 1944. So he did something that literally has not been done since World War II was very much raging. He's a tough, hard-nosed blocker with strong hands and good placement in his punch. Coogan is not a true people mover, but he can anchor in the pass game and wall off in the run game. He shows the ability to sustain and can drive blocks when in leverage. While combo blocking, Coogan does a good job climbing up to the second level, and he stays at home in pass protection if he doesn't have immediate work. Coogan avoids opening rush lanes and patiently waits for defenders to come to him before striking. Overall, he is a good technician who understands angles and leverage. Jagger Burton, James Brockermeyer, Jaron Kump, Delby Lemieux, Connor Tullison, Matt Golden. Some real names in here. Look at some corners. Yeah, McCoy's still out there. I think there's an injury concern there, though. Keontae Scott, Malik Muhammad, Keith Abney, Davis Ebenesun. Not sure how to pronounce that. Will Lee III, Dalen Everett, Takario Davis, Devin Moore, Chandler Rivers, Charles Demings, Ephesians Prysock. Sounds like a David Foster Wallace character. Domani Jackson, Bama. Yeah, corner looks deep again. And then McNeil Warren going off the board to the Brownies here at 58. I was waiting for that because he was the top ranked guy on this Miller draft board that I've been looking at, Matt Miller on ESPN. He was sitting there a little bit of a while for how highly he ranked him. Not to say that he was wrong to do so or anything, but he was chilling there a while, and I'm glad to see him get picked, even if it is to the Brownies. Texans pick already in at 59. See if I can find it. Brownies traded up to get McNeil Warren. Okay. They traded up to pick 58, received pick 152 with 58, and they gave up pick 70 and 107. Titans are trading up to 60, so that'll be after this Texans pick, I guess. Bears are moving back. See the Texans grabbed here. Marlon Klein, tight end out of Michigan. A German-born prospect with limited experience, 12 starts. Klein flashes more ability than his role at Michigan allowed him to show. Okay, so a little bit of a wild card there. I like that. Marlin, Marlin. He's got the fish spelling, not the Marlon Humphrey spelling. That's intriguing. That's spicy stuff. I'll see if I got him on the old board here from Matt Miller. Yeah, here he is. Klein is not flashy on film and lacks great collegiate statistical production. He can square up, punch, and move his feet through contact as a blocker. He was used on a lot of down blocks in which he does a good job walling off. As a receiver, he's a long strider who is primarily a straight line mover. Klein has sufficient top end speed, but functions more as a build to speed player. Klein is not a dynamic route runner who creates separation from defenders, but can be used as an intermediate target who can navigate soft spots. Klein is still raw, but has upside thanks to his good frame and athletic tools, which can continue to be molded. Man, he was down there, though, according to Matt. He was below Riley Nowakowski, Will Kachmarek, Josh Cuevas, Michael Trigg, Joe Royer, Eli Raridan, Jack Andrews, Oscar Delp, Justin Jolly, Sam Roush, and Max Clare. Quite a few names that the Texans picked that guy over. Girlish Menace would not hate drafting Jennings Dunker for his headshot alone. Yeah, he's a fun guy. He was he went through the Barstool Chicago office last college playoff, and I think he was on Mostly Sports. And yeah, he was an interesting, fun listen. So from nothing else, from a content perspective, I'd love if they got Jennings Dunker. And just a funny name too, frankly. Calling a spade a spade. Titans pick is in. Not seeing it anywhere yet. Titans get Anthony Hill out of Texas. There you go. Linebacker we were talking about a little bit earlier. I'll go to him now. 6'2", 238. Tested well at the combine where he ran a 4.51 40. Very good productive player during his college career with 250 total tackles in 3 seasons. He is a taller linebacker who tracks the ball well and uses his length to keep blockers off his framing traffic. Quick enough to shoot gaps downhill, plus shows the ability to stack blockers at the point of attack. As an add-on rusher off the edge, he has a quick get-off. Can dip and rip through blocks and chase ball carriers from behind. In coverage, Hill reads the quarterback effectively and gets his hand in passing lanes from Matt Miller. Pro comp Edgerrin Cooper. I like that. Nice pick for the Titans. Robert Saleh going to love that. All right, I am getting thirsty, so I'm going to step away for a quick 5-minute break. Be right back, and we are approaching round 3, so the Ravens will be up in about 20 picks or so. So hang in until then. All right, Daddy's back. Thanks for hanging in. Thanks for hanging in with me. Bills on the clock. Let's see what they go with. See what they do. Some exciting picks while I was gone there, if I'm not mistaken. Let me pull up my tracker. Where put that thing? Yeah, Max Clare. I think Clare going to the Rams to play with the great man Ty Simpson, assuredly. Bills needs edge, offensive line, linebacker, safety, wide receiver. Really feels like they like have to add a wide receiver. I mean, I know they did the DJ Moore trade and everything, but man, it feels like they want to put the Keon Coleman thing behind them. Really feels like add another playmaker, just go all the way in. Get Josh even more weapons. Try and figure this thing out. Let's see what they do. Yeah, so they traded up with the Broncos and they select Ohio State cornerback Davison Igbinosun. Is that how you say it? Igbinosun from Ohio State. Okay. See what the word is on him. For Matt Miller, he possessed length and ran a 4.50 second 40-yard dash at the combine, aggressive in coverage, but that led to a nation-high 16 penalties in 2024. He's a physical corner in press coverage, rerouting and disrupting receivers at the line of scrimmage. He's shown the ability to keep pace with the receiver, but he can be a step late when playing off coverage. He needs to do a better job of locating the ball when he's in trail position and run support. He's very effective for a cornerback. He fights off blocks, chases with good effort, and has sound tackling. 52 tackles last season. Overall, he has translatable tools, but will need to clean up his game to be truly effective. Sounds like a pesky Bills cornerback like we've seen in the past, like Trey White in his prime and, you know, a number of guys that they've had. Chargers up next, and then after that, Seattle with the last pick of the second round. Lamar Jackson tweets at 8:14 p.m. Braxton Miller, Ohio State highlights go too crazy. 3 fire emojis. I love that man. Love that man so much. I think he and Vega are going to be funny together. Look at my guy, ZJ, Zach Cantor from Baltimore B-Town, just tweeted, guys I like a position the Ravens haven't drafted yet. Center, Jake Slaughter, Sam Hecht. Wide receiver, Chris Bell, Malachi Fields, Ted Hurst, Bryce Lance, Jacoby Lane. Tight end, Sam Roush, Oscar Delp, Michael Trigg, Will Kazmarek. Running back, Mike Washington, Nicholas Singleton, Damon Claiborne. DT, Grayson Holton, Landon Robinson, Zane Durant. Linebacker, Torrin York, Harold Perkins, Justin Jefferson. Harold Perkins, he was a really big name, like when he first burst onto the scene as like a young, exciting, buzzy freshman linebacker. I guess he fell off a little bit in between now and then. Cornerback, Jermond McCoy, Keontae Scott, Will Lee, Julian Neal, Chandler Rivers, Jalen Husky. Then he also likes punter Brett Thorson. Love a punter. Really hope they don't draft one. That's my stance. After what happened with Jordan Stout, who was turned into a perfectly good punter, but it took him a while, and then he gets paid to go elsewhere. I think I'm good on developing punters for other teams. I don't want them doing that. They also signed that guy too. I forget his name, but they did sign a punter already in the offseason. So maybe they'll have a competition there. I don't know. Pick is in for the Chargers. Sean Merriman lights out. Now to announce it. Love to see Sean Merriman. To be a Chargers fan traveling to Pittsburgh to watch the NFL draft second round in person. Who is that person? As they take center, Jake Slaughter. So that was a target we were talking about for the Ravens. Certainly was a guy we were talking about. Did he already come off of he's already off of Matt's board here. See if I can find him on Lance Ioane. Jake Slaughter looks like a 90s IT guy. He's got like a goatee and like wire rim glasses and blonde hair, blonde beard. That's pretty funny. 6'4", 7 1/8 inch arms, 303 pounds. Or no, 32 3/8 inch arms, 10 inch hands. Lance Ioane giving him a 5.93, average backup or special teamer. Projected for round 4, so he didn't love him. Yeah, he didn't love him at all. I think Matt Miller liked him a lot better. I think he had him ranked higher. But Chargers get one of the Ravens' potential targets there at center in Jake Slaughter. As Seattle's pick is already in. Let's keep this thing moving. Let's keep this thing moving at light speed. Yeah, and then we got Jeff Z saying best centers left available. Kansas State, Sam Hecht. Auburn's Connor Liu. Texas A&M's Trey Zune. So, yeah. You got to think at least one of those three will fall to 80. As we are officially into round 3, although we don't know what Seattle is doing here. See if I can get that pulled up. Zion Young, I am looking forward to bringing Super Bowl back to Baltimore, whenever it takes. I'll be the kicker for sure. Yeah, I don't know if he was watching Week 18 last year, the last game of the season in the regular season, but maybe he will need to be the kicker. Who knows? I kid. I hope it works out from Tyler Loop. One of the first replies. We might need that from you, brother. No, another one. If he can make from 44 yards, he'll be an upgrade. Just tough for the Loop, man. It's going to be brutal. He's not going to live that one down until he more than makes up for it with like a game winner in the playoffs. And to do that, he's going to have to probably win a battle in camp first and then survive a full season. We are truly in a post-Justin Tucker world in more ways than one. And in terms of on the field, we've already seen that bear out. All right, where is the Seahawks pick? They get TCU safety Bud Clark at 64. Another piece for head coach Mike McDonald. Clark offers versatility, able to cover the slot, play deep, and handle outside responsibilities with strong ball production, 15 INTs, 21 PBUs. Love a ball hawk in college. I love a guy that's just around the ball, you know? Can't teach that. See if I can pull up some Bud Clark buzz. 6'1", 188. Clark is a multi-year starter with extensive game experience. He shows good acceleration and range, covering a lot of ground and getting involved in plays downfield. As a safety with cornerback-esque cover skills, Clark gets a position to make plays on the ball, but could work on consistency following through. At times, he can widen out and get beaten with leverage by opening his hips and allowing free access. He plays physical and does a good job timing blitzes, but can shore up his tackling when working in run support. Okay. 85th overall player from Matt Miller. We are officially into round 3. So we are 14 picks away from the Ravens. If you're in the chat, if you're actively listening, I know things have been a little sleepy after that Zion Young pick. No, it's been a little quiet. I know we've been waiting for the Ravens to come back around, but we were starting to get in striking distance. So if you're out there, if you got any thoughts, the way the board's falling, what you're liking, what you're seeing, what you're thinking, what you don't want, let me know in the chat. We'll talk it out. We'll hash it out. Like adults here on a Friday night. First pick in the 3rd round, Arizona Cardinals. Who've had an interesting draft so far. They go and get Jeremiah Love, which I will choose to believe that Michael Bidwill probably stepped in there and said, hey, Monty Ossenforth, this is what you're doing. That is my thought. Their pick is already in here for the top of round 3. So we're moving at light speed. Looking at the ticker now on NFL Network, I can see BAL on the far right side of the screen. So we are officially in striking distance. That is how I define that. If you can see your team on the ticker, you're in striking distance. Not quite trade up distance, but striking distance. Watchers, Jermod McCoy's knee has just got to be destroyed or something. This is insane. I love film watchers. And yeah, man, that was a name a lot of people were throwing around. A lot of people. I knew there was a knee, but I did not know it was like to this extent. And there's always a guy or two like that every year. Always happens. An update to my previous story about Lamar Jackson tweeting about Braxton Miller, Ohio State highlights. We have Ball Hawkins, BA11 Hawkins on Twitter tweeting at him. Lamar, focus on your new teammates, twin, LMFAO, this shit frying me, laughing emojis. Lamar responds to him. It's always fun when Lamar has time. It happens every once in a while. That's where you get your Johnny tweets. That's where you get why the buddy pregnant. And he responds to this tweet, self-explanatory. Do you see our draft picks so far? 5. Count them, 5 fire emojis. So it's a ringing endorsement so far of EDC by Lamar. Love to see that. Baba Booey, this is bad stuff. I don't know about that. I don't know about that profile picture either. And no, I will not be reading that out. You did not get me. I don't know if you're doing the same thing here with the Gabe Horn. Gabe, yeah, you got me. You got me. You got me. You got me. It's all right. It happens. We gotta liven it up. We gotta get some energy going here. I'm dragging a little bit. I'm definitely dragging. Baba Booey, light the candle. Pick is in. So who did the Cardinals take? Did I miss it? Because Roger Goodell was walking up and down a line, shaking military hands, saluting to service, faith, family, football, things of that nature. You're a good sport. Thank you. Thank you for hanging in the chat with me. And I do, as much as I hate to get got, I do love a good joke like that. Love seeing other people get ball sacked like that. It's gonna happen to me sometimes. I am not above it. Who the Cardinals get? Oh, well, okay. Cardinals take Carson Beck. So who was Girlish Menace saying, do the Cardinals take a quarterback? Yeah, I think, there we go. She was saying earlier, when do you think the next quarterback gets picked? Cardinals go for someone in round 3. You nailed it. They take Carson Beck out of Miami, who was a big name prospect when he was at Georgia. One of those guys that felt like he had the physical tools, mental makeup. There was maybe some like, what's going on with this guy type stuff. Big game performer. He looked really good in the CFP this year, obviously. Clutch game against Ole Miss. Yeah, 6'5", 233. Beck has served as the QB in a pro-style system, so the processing a new language in the NFL shouldn't be a major jump for him. Mechanically, Beck has a fairly clean motion with the ability to get the ball out quickly and on time. His delivery is consistent and does not change much as he throws to different levels of the field. He has the arm strength and accuracy to complete short, intermediate, and deep throws. Beck does a good job processing his reads and not panicking when having to come back to his check down option. His processing drops slightly when under pressure, which can lead to unwarranted and errant throws. Matt Miller's pro comp, Davis Mills. So he's getting the comp to the neck. Davis Mills, the great neck. And I think that makes a lot of sense. He's just kind of a statuesque, not super mobile kind of guy, strong arm, stand back there, make a few throws, but just not super exciting, not really an alien in an alien quarterback league right now. Like, I feel like Sam Darnold is kind of the exception to rule in this, but even he's pretty athletic. Like, you need a guy who has traits, has tools, can move around a little bit, can outrun guys, can outthrow DBs in certain situations. Loud traits is what I'm looking for, and I don't know that Carson Beck has that. But like I was saying, maybe this is just kind of the dart throw that they're going to take while they do probably try and tank this year. Maybe they throw him out there in week 1 and just say, fuck it, we'll sink and swim with this guy. Sink or swim, I should say. And then if it doesn't work out, maybe they go with Dante Moore. Maybe they go with Arch. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But that's intriguing. I'm glad they injected some life into this draft because, like I said, I was flagging a little bit on that. Broncos have already picked. They take Texas A&M DT Tyler Onyedim. Not a name I was super familiar with. I'll see if I can find him. Yeah, he's 111 overall for Matt Miller. Transfer from Iowa State to Texas A&M for his final season of eligibility. He carries his weight well on his frame and plays with high energy. He has a quick first step, the speed to penetrate gaps, and the strength to hold the point of attack. His use of hands is good, including a strong punch. When rushing, he can straight arm defenders and keep them off his chest. He plays with a good base, allowing him to redirect and make tackles in pursuit. Overall, he has a skill set that can translate to the next level. Sounds like a very Broncos type pick. Big guy from a big school, kind of similar to how the Ravens pick. Good production. Feels like he just he projects well. 48 tackles, 2.5 sacks in 2025, which were career highs. So maybe a little bit of juice there at DT. Excited to see what happens with the Broncos this year, too. Excited to see that Bo Nix, Sean Payton dynamic kind of play out. I felt like there was maybe some, maybe a little bit of friction with the way the injury was treated and spoken about. Yeah, I feel like Sean Payton has a tendency to maybe wear out his welcome a little bit. And maybe I'm misspeaking on that because he's only been a head coach in 2 places, but he's a bit of a prickly pear. He's a prickly Pete, Sean Payton. Prickly Payton. Which makes for great content. I don't have to like it, but it's entertaining. Pick is in for the Raiders. As we inch closer and closer. This is pick 67, so we're 13 away. And Matt Millen, I think, coming back out. Is this Matt Millen? Is Matt Millen still with us? That's the question we really all need to answer right now. Is Matt Millen still, in fact, with us? Yeah. Yeah, and listen, if this 2009 Wikipedia portrait of him is correct, then I believe that is, in fact, him. As they take Kieran Crawford, edge from Auburn, 3rd team All SEC. See if I can find him here with Matt Miller. Funny thing, talking about Matt Millen and going to Matt Miller. In fact, those guys were confused a lot when we met Matt Miller, who's a younger guy. We started out at Bleacher Report. People were like, why the fuck is Matt Millen writing for Bleacher Report? What is he doing? He's like, I'm Matt Miller. I'm not Matt Millen. Yeah, I'm not even seeing Kieran Crawford on here, unless it was already removed, which is possible. Pick is in for the Eagles at 68. We're blistering now. We're blistering now, baby. We like that. Yeah, I didn't see Kieran Crawford anywhere on Miller's board, and then Kent Lee Platt from MathBomb with the relative athletic score said he did not qualify for a relative athletic score due to lack of measurements. So I don't know if he means lack of measurements, like he didn't actually take them at the combine or whatever, but yeah, he did not qualify. So interesting. Yeah, JP Acosta, he's got a really nice story, but I don't know about drafting him this high. Good athlete, but he's going to need some time on task to get some reps. I would have gone Barham or Joshua Josephs. Ari Myrov, 22 seconds ago, the Eagles just took Miami offensive tackle Markel Bell at number 68, an absolute giant at 6'9". Nice. 346 with 36 and 3/8 inch arms and an 87 and 1/8 inch wingspan. He started 16 games last season and earned 3rd team All ACC honor. So another Miami tackle now off the board here in the opening of round 3. Eagles. Looks like another good pick. See if I can find a little bit of a write-up on him. Yeah. Yeah, 186 overall for Matt Miller. A massive left tackle who started 21 games over the last 2 seasons in Miami. His length makes him hard to rush around, allowing him to direct rushers past the passer when run blocking. He can lean on defenders, move them, and then wall off. He can run into issues overreaching on kick steps and pass protection. allowing for rushers to cut inside. He can also struggle to redirect laterally and needs better core strength to truly anchor. He was pushed around on film when rushers got into his chest. Though he has exceptional height, that can cause problems for Bell when he climbs into the second level and needs to latch onto smaller box defenders. That's interesting, man. Sounds like a guy that could frankly learn under Mailata a little bit. Sounds like similar measurables there. Maybe they're just maybe they see the comparison and they're like, we'll just develop another Mailata. Although Mailata was a very unique story. He did not have the University of Miami third-round pick pedigree. Bears up next here at pick 69, which we like that. And we get closer and closer and closer to the Ravens pick. Adley Rutschman's 6 RBI night. Cole Jackson FB, I don't know who that is, but he tweeted, I'd be pretty hecting happy if the Ravens found a hecting way to draft a hecting center here in the third, #hect. So I think we know who Cole's looking at with 11 picks to go. I think a lot of people would agree with me. I mentioned striking distance, though. I feel like we're approaching trade-up distance. They've got a real need at center here, boys and girls. They've got a real need. I don't want to use the D word. I'm not going to say it, but they're a little thirsty. I'll use the T word. They're thirsty for some help at center. So let me pull up the centers again. Yeah, so Hecht, like I said, he's 80th overall for Matt Miller. So the value would be there. Then Miller's got Connor Liu at 104 overall ranked. That would still be in third round range, but a little bit of a reach. Trey Zune at 106. So pretty much the same neighborhood, although Trey Zune, it's now just coming across my desk that he is 6'7", 312 pounds. That is a big boy of a center. Zune has a ton of playing experience as a 4-year starter for the Aggies. In 2025, he was named a first-team All-SEC selection and won the conference's Jacobs blocking trophy. Zune lacks the ideal length for a tackle, where he primarily played in college with just 32.5-inch arms. However, he displays very good feet, which could make a transition inside easy for him. Zune did take 124 snaps at center in 2025 and could settle in there at the next level. In pass protection, he does a good job mirroring and keeping himself between the defender and the quarterback. As a run blocker, he's very functional when holding down his gaps and can easily climb to the next level. Next one after that, it looks like a big drop-off down to 156 overall with Parker Brailsford out of Alabama. So, yeah, that would be a bit of a drop-off. I think the sweet spot really here is going to be Hecht as like the ideal guy, and then one of Liu or Trey Zune. But like I said, a 6'7" center, I mean, that's like, talk about not being able to see over the line. And like Lamar's not a small guy, but he's not like the tallest quarterback in the league either. Just be a funny dynamic. I'd tune into that. CJ Harris says Hector or receiver. If it comes down to that, I'd probably just pick Hecht. Like, that's a way bigger need. I know people want the receivers. They want the flashy play as Sam Roush. The Bears take another tight end, Sam Roush, out of Stanford. Man, they like their tight ends there in Chicago. That is interesting. That is funny. Yeah, man, if it comes down to that, I'd go Hecht. But if Hecht goes and then it comes down to let's see what receivers are available and where they're ranking out. So Miller's got Zachariah Branch. He's been sitting there for a while. He's 40th overall for Matt Miller. So I'd assume there's maybe an injury thing going on there or something else. but Zachariah Branch 5'9", 177. So maybe a little nebbish. If I were to go receiver, I'd probably want a taller guy to round out the room a little bit. Because Bateman, he's not small, but he's not really that tall, box people out type guy either. He's more of a finesse space eater. But Zachariah Branch, great burst and short area quickness, continuously created big plays in college, including 40 receiving first downs in 2025. I love a guy that gets to the sticks, that just moves the chains. Has elite initial acceleration and can separate from defenders quickly. Plus, he can stop and start on a dime. Branch does not shy away from contact and will run through traffic over the middle. He still needs to polish his route running, but he has the necessary tools to do so. He also adds special teams value as a returner. I was going to say John Harbaugh would love that, but he is gone now. His lack of size might limit him, but overall, he's a slot receiver who can win with suddenness and pure top-end speed. I don't hate that. I don't hate that for them because, like, Zay doesn't project as, like, that, perimeter guy. But X and Y are a little more interchangeable, and Zay certainly plays a little bit of both. And he does play in the slot as a Z at times, and, you're not actually allowed to move a designated X receiver in motion. So you want to move Zay around a little bit anyway, but he can play the perimeter, and if this guy projects purely as a slot receiver, that could be a good pick for you. Could be a good pick. It depends, like Spenny said, on what Declan Doyle wants to do, which we don't necessarily know yet. Chris Brazzell from Tennessee, next one on here. 42nd overall for Matt Miller. So there's some good value here if they want to go. And he is your big body guy. 6'4", 198. Nice 6'4", lean 198 receiver. Brazzell received first-team All-SEC honors last season after posting 62 receptions, 1,017 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns. He has deceptively good acceleration off the line of scrimmage, using long strides to eat up a defensive back's cushion. He is not as efficient getting out of the breaks on routes as expected for someone with his length, but he has flexibility to drop his body and break down at the top of his routes. Brazzell's balance and body control to contort and make a catch outside his body showed up on tape. He is not exceptionally physical for a taller receiver, but he was very hard to stop on deep balls last season. Comparison, Christian Watson. So I like that. I'd love to get a Christian Watson in the third round, but it might not work out that well. And from what I read there, it sounds a little Tez Walker-ish to me, which I like Tez Walker's potential. But I don't know. I'd maybe want to get a little bit more diversity of talent in the room. But is that going to be available is the question. Next one on the list at 57th overall for Matt Miller is Antonio Williams from Clemson, 6 foot, 187 pounds. Led Clemson in receptions during the past 2 seasons. He's another slot receiver. He has good burst and acceleration off the line of scrimmage, shows good twitch in short areas, specifically on option routes. Not a true vertical threat, but has enough speed to threaten the defense. He needs to clean up some drops on passes outside his frame. He has the balance and body control to adjust and is strong enough to make contested catches. He displays good awareness in space and has some make you miss ability. That again, that's not like the big guy that I'm talking about, but that could be a good route running, possession, just all around type guy that I would like. Not that should preclude you from taking the other 3 guys that I've already mentioned, or the other 2, I should say. But I like that profile. And I am familiar with Malachi Fields, who is the big guy at 6'5", 218. Excuse me for a second here. Malachi Fields, 59th overall for Matt Miller. A long, big-bodied receiver, though he's not a vertical threat. He has dynamic traits and backed it up with good testing numbers at the combine. He's efficient at getting in and out of breaks with great deceleration ability at the top of his routes and shows some burst out of his cuts. Fields does a good job of not telegraphing his routes, though he did run the largest route tree, or though he did not run the largest route tree. He plays strong through contact and provides a big catch radius. Sounds pretty good, and I liked what I saw from him at ND. You get a tall Notre Dame receiver. There's maybe some whiffs of Miles Boykin. I would understand some trepidation there. But Boykin, I feel like, man, I might get flamed for this, but I feel like he could have been better than he was. And maybe I'm wrong for saying that because he did go elsewhere. I think he tried to catch on in Pittsburgh and it didn't work out. But, man, I feel like if he had not been in that Greg Roman offense He could have gone somewhere that maybe could have used him a little bit better. He could have carved out a longer career as like a rotational guy. Scored a lot of touchdowns like early on in his career. Lamar and him seem to have a little bit of a connection there in the red zone. Caught that deep ball in Seattle that we all remember, of course. I had higher hopes for him, but it didn't work out, sadly. So yeah, if it comes down to Hecht versus those guys, like I said, I'd probably go Hecht, but I'd be very happy if they just said best player available and they took one of those receivers. But we also don't know, like, do they see receiver as that big need? I feel like there's some need at cornerback still, some depth there at least, because Marlon, he's getting older. He's very expensive. What's his future with the team? You've got McCoy sitting there. I feel like he's just going to keep falling. Like people have been mentioning, this could be a catastrophic knee situation potentially. And you don't want to quite gamble on that in the third round. Because like third round, it's on the line, but you're hoping you can get a guy that can make some impact in year one, if not be a starter for you if you get lucky. And McCoy's knee just might be shot like that. But you still got Keontae Scott, 48th overall for Matt Miller. Malik Muhammad from Texas, 65th. Keith Abney, the second, 75th from Arizona State. Good value to be had. And then Will Lee from Texas A&M, who's ranked 105. So that'd be a little bit of a reach. But that guy, he's 6'2", 189. You like the traits there. You like the loud traits. You never have enough corners. Truly can't. Looking at D tackle, too, you got Xavier Harris, 6'8", 330 D tackle out of Ole Miss. Feels like that could be fun. Dominique Orange out of Iowa State, 78th overall rank, so that'd be right in the neighborhood. And then Halton from Oklahoma, a lot of people have been talking about him. 93rd overall for Matt Miller, but some people have him higher. Take a look at guard, too. I mean, Pregnon from Oregon, still out there. Matt Miller comps Pregnon to Cesar Ruiz. Pregnon, 6'4", 314, named first team All Big Ten last season and displayed a complete skill set on film. Does a very good job of unlocking his hips and playing with power and explosion. He keeps his feet running through contact and finishes blocks, but he can struggle against quicker defenders if he does not immediately get his hands on them. He's a guard who has a lot of experience and should compete in an NFL locker room. So again, if it comes down to him versus Hecht, you would take Hecht, but that's another guy that feels like it could be good potential value there. I've also seen Brian Parker thrown out a little bit. I'm looking at his Matt Miller report right here. He's below Pregnon, as his 102 overall prospect. Lined up at offensive tackle at Duke, though he could move inside in the NFL. He displays average strength to move defenders off their mark, but he can wall them off and is a good combo blocker. Parker displays fluidity when pulling and climbing to the second level. However, edge rushers have shown the ability to get their hands into his chest and drive Parker into the backfield. In pass protection, he can also struggle to get depth in his kick slide, letting rushers beat him off the edge. As we've got Antonio Williams going off the board, the wide receiver from Clemson that we were talking about, kind of that all-around guy, going to the commies at pick number 71. Another weapon for Jaden Daniels. I like that pick. Yeah, and watching some of his highlights, shit, man. Looks like a guy with a good catch radius, a good nose for the ball, track it in the air, make some plays with the ball in his hands. Looks like that'll be a good one for him. Bungle's up next at pick 72. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to announce it. I think we are approaching trade up territory. I think we're approaching it because, like I said, you got 4 fifth-rounders. Might take a little bit more than that to get it done, but maybe you move the 4th rounder, and then you can move back up into 4 with one of those 4 fifth-rounders, not to confuse anyone. But I feel like we're getting there as the Bengals pick is already in. As the Ravens, with impeccable timing, are promoting their Rio trip here with a statement from Steve Bisciotti. And I'll get to that after we get the Bengals pick. Dekario Davis, corner from Washington. Yeah, we were talking about him. 6'3", 194, tall, long, ideal press corner with a Reek Woolen comparison. Okay, looks like that could be a strong pick for the Bungles. But Steve Bisciotti commenting on the Ravens going to Brazil this year. We are honored to be chosen for the NFL's first ever game in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The international expansion of our great game has been remarkable. South America is home to some of the world's most passionate sports fans, including our Ravens flock in Brazil. We look forward to playing in the iconic Maracanã Stadium against the Dallas Cowboys as our league continues to engage with fans across the globe. Anyone going to that? If you're planning to go to that, drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat because that could be a really fun trip. I've never been to South America. I've been to Mexico a handful of times now, but never down to South America. It'd be a fun trip. If I had the financial means, I probably would take part in that one myself because Brazil seems like a very cool place. It's also the benefit of that being a neutral site. I don't really I'm not a huge go to away games guy because it just feels like a, kind of a losing proposition. Like I hate being at losses at home. I feel like a loss on the road is like doubly bad. And then you have the added drawback of having to drive or fly back home. Just tough. Like Spenny and Brian going to that Pittsburgh essentially playoff game last year. They also went to Buffalo the year before that. Those guys just have their hearts ripped out in the span of like less than a full year. And I don't have that in me. God bless those guys, but you don't want me on that wall. I'm the opposite of Jack Nicholson. You don't want me on that wall. It's Oscar Delp, the tight end out of Georgia, going to the Saints here at 73. So there's a tight end target off the board that I think the Ravens could have been looking at, but I think guys like Jolly are still out there. There are a few tight ends that they could still target that are of the bigger name variety. But like I said, it feels like things are lining up here for them to go with Hecht. And like I said, I think other teams are going to realize that. I think it was pretty well publicized, the whole Tyler Linderbaum thing. Pretty well known that the Ravens are probably going to be looking at that position. So if I were them, I'd be on the phone like right now. Giants pick is already in at 74. So maybe they take him. Maybe Harbaugh gets some of his revenge. But after that, you got Miami, you got Pittsburgh, you got Tampa Bay, Indy, Atlanta. So yeah, I mean, you're not going to be trading up with the Steelers, I don't think. And then I don't know that Atlanta needs a center. I don't know that Indy does. I'd probably have to do deep dives on these teams I don't really have the time for, frankly, right now, running this show. But it's lining up. Feels like it's lining up anyway. And then Malachi Fields going to the Giants. Going to John Harbaugh, big frame, 50-50 ball winner, Michael Pittman Jr. being the comparison that DJ and the boys are throwing out on the NFL Network feed. That could be fun, man. Giants, they're throwing darts with wide receiver. They're certainly throwing darts. They've already got a pretty fun room there, but this will make it even more fun. Get Jackson Dart as weapons. I like it. I like it a lot. So the Giants actually traded up with the Browns for that one too. So it looks like they were trying to get ahead of the Dolphins or the Steelers, who obviously were targeting Mekhi Lemon and got cucked by Philly on that one. Yeah, because it's Miami and then Pittsburgh. So they were trying to get ahead of one of the two or both of them. Yeah, I mean, it's fallen pretty well here. It's fallen pretty well. Heck, we've been talking about all night. I've been talking about it too much. He's going to get picked within the next 4 and crush that dream. But you still got Connor Liu. Still got Trey Zune, my big Tormund Giants Bane King, 6'7" center. Still got Prenion and Brian Parker there at guard. Jennings Dunker at tackle. Caleb Tiernan's 84th for Matt Miller. 6'8", 323 out of Northwestern. Second team All Big Ten in 2025. Extremely tall, but with short arms. That might limit him when blocking on the edge. He plays light on his feet and has some explosion, which was on display at the combine with a 35.5-inch vertical jump. Due to his size, it's hard for him to get good pad leverage consistently. His punch strength is average, but serviceable. As a run blocker, he could be effective when he gets his hands into a defender and absorbs them into his frame. He does a good job washing defenders out of the play once latched on, but at times, Tiernan can have trouble reaching quicker defenders shooting his gap. He could move to guard for more playing time, as his shorter arms will not be as much of a liability there. Some more OTs. Demetrius Crownover from Texas A&M, 86 overall, not bad. 6'7", 319. A lot of mammoth offensive linemen in this class. I like that. He has good bend and flexibility for a player with his height, though can get caught playing high at times. He can have late hands and poor hand placement, allowing defenders to get into his chest and put him on skates. He needs to develop a stronger punch. His length works to his advantage, as it can be difficult for rushers to get around him, and he's able to wash defenders past the quarterback in the pocket. That sounded a little Falele-ish to me. He's generally more effective when blocking on an angle and can be an effective run blocker. Overall, Crownover is fluid with outstanding length, but will need to continue to develop to be successful at the next level. Drew Shelton out of Penn State is the next one mentioned there, but he's 116th overall. I don't know, though. EDC is liking that Penn State connection. You never know. Miami's pick is in. Let's see if Twitter has it. Not seeing it yet. So the Miami pick not only in, but it sounds like the Steelers one is as well, because I'm seeing Corey Kinnan, who I trust, saying the Steelers are taking Drew Aller. So, okay. That is interesting. We'll see who the Dolphins take, because I missed that. Caleb Douglas, wide receiver, Texas Tech. Not super familiar with his game. But I am more interested in the Steelers taking a potential quarterback of the future. So they had Nussmeier on the board, who was the 87th ranked player for Matt Miller. Drew Aller, 129th ranked. Aller peaked in 2024, leading Penn State to a 13-3 record and appearance in the CFP semifinals. Yeah, we all saw that. We all saw it. He's a big pocket passer with the anticipation, release, and arm strength to throw into tight windows over the middle. He drives the ball on seam routes and hole shots on the outside. An experienced starter who can get through his progressions. He's not a big play threat the teams will be keen on executing design quarterbacks runs with, but he scrambles for first downs and avoids negative plays with his legs. Bad leg injury, though. I will say that. He was plagued by poor to average performances against top teams. That's kind of the whole book on Penn State and the James Franklin era, at least. Holding a 1-7 record against AP top 10 opponents in college. In these marquee matchups, Aller had low completion percentages, around 48% to 50%, as well as key turnovers and losses against top 6 opponents. He's an intriguing prospect because he's so physically gifted as a passer, but inconsistent big game performance and injury are areas of concerns. Aller had a season-ending surgery on a broken ankle in November, broken left ankle. So Steelers in Pittsburgh, they pick a quarterback. And the wheel continues to turn, just going round and round and round. Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure, will come back. Aller can learn under him. But, yeah, there it goes. Tampa Bay on the board after that. Drew Aller, learning under the tutelage of Mike McCarthy. All right, 3 picks away. Green Bay. Did they trade up? Am I seeing that correctly? At Cole Jackson FB. Drew Aller, LOL, all caps. Tom Pelissero, the Steelers draft Penn State quarterback Drew Aller at number 76 overall. Quote, blew me away with his interview. His knowledge of what they did at Penn State, his ability to call plays, all of it. He's got a chance to be like a Joe Flacco. Don't say that. Don't say that, Tom. Come on. Let's not do that. Yeah, so Buccaneers traded 77 to the Packers for picks 83 and 160. So Green Bay, what are you doing? What is you doing, baby? Steelers fans not taking that pick well, if what I'm seeing from Nick Farabaugh and his mentions are any indication. Guy who covers the Steelers for those unfamiliar for Penn Live. Hoodie Ramey saying it's a solid move. I love Ramey. I don't know if I agree with him on that, but we'll see. Packers take Mizzou DT Chris McClellan. So we're closer and closer to the Ravens with their dream, or at least my dream of them getting Sam Hecht. Still alive. Got to get through Indy and Atlanta. BR Pittsburgh gets their QB of the future. I don't know, Jim. Yeah, so it's feeling like Hector a receiver, as CJ Harris put it earlier. Had a few guys come off the board since we mentioned that. Fields, Williams, things of that nature. Branch, Chris Brazell. Ted Hurst from Georgia State, 70th overall. 6'4", 206. Long striding receiver with a great frame. He plays with balance and body control to contort and make back shoulder receptions. Hurst has some short area quickness for his size, as he's able to gain free access against press off the line of scrimmage. Hurst accelerates out of his cuts and can pick up yards after the catch. With speed to take it the distance, he transferred up to the FBS level after time at Valdosta State and didn't miss a beat. Those attributes can help him transition to the next level. Okay. Got some good options here. And then, I mentioned Elijah Surratt. He's 73rd overall. Skylar Bell, 72nd overall. Chris Bell, 77th overall. Deion Burks at 81st overall from Oklahoma. So in terms of receiver, you've got like 7 or 8 guys. If you want to throw Jacoby Lane out of USC in there, that would be like pretty decent value picks. Lane is 90th for Matt Miller. But yeah, bit of a drop off after Sam Hecht if we're talking about centers. Because he's 80th. It lines up exactly with where they're picking. And then Connor Liu is 104th. Zune 106th. So maybe you do take the receiver and trade up for one of these guys, or if Hecht continues to fall. But I don't know if I see them doing that. I don't know if like packaging those fifths is going to be enough to get you back up into the third. I guess it would depend on how far they fall, but you still got a half of a third round to go here. I think there are comps in the third as well, so that lengthens it too. Colts are taking LSU safety AJ Halsey at number 78. A ball hawking safety. He earned first team All SEC last year and recorded 10 INTs in his career. So you got one more pick in Atlanta. And then we're on to the Ravens at 80. AJ Halsey looking like a good pick for the Colts. 56th overall. Muscle-bound safety who led LSU's defense with 89 tackles in 2025. He is more of a build-to-speed type player who shows knockback ability when coming downhill. He is at his best when working in run support where strength and physicality show up. In space, however, he overruns leverage, allowing for cutbacks, and lacks the deceleration and change of direction to recover. In coverage, he is unlikely to win many man-versus-man matchups at the next level, fitting better in a more zone-heavy scheme. Overall, he's better suited when working in the box rather than patrolling the back half of the defense. Could be solid. Could be solid. Falcons take Georgia wide receiver Zachariah Branch. So there it is. There it is, people. 40th overall ranked player, I should say. 7th ranked receiver for Matt Miller going to the Falcons. Out of Georgia, staying in state. Looks like it could be a good pick for them. But that leaves the Ravens with their pick of Sam Hecht, one of these other centers we've been talking about, in Lou, Zune, Parker Brailsford, and then receivers in Chris Brazell, Ted Hurst, Skylar Bell, Elijah Surratt, Chris Bell, Deion Burks, Jacoby Lane. Anyone else in the mix there? Not really seeing the value lining up in that many other places. Xavier Harris, I mentioned, the DT out of Ole Miss, 63rd according to Matt Miller's board. Tight ends, Justin Jolly, a name a lot of people like. He's ranked 92nd here on this here board I'm looking at. But again, I feel like you could wait. Really feel like you could. Jermon McCoy still there, but mentioned it before. I just feel like the medicals, it feels like that guy is destined for a free fall. I'm sad to say it for him. Keontae Scott would be a good value per this. Malik Muhammad. I'm ready for the pick to take place, so I'll tell you that. In over 2 hours here. Thanks for everyone hanging with me over the time. Thank you for flying the friendly skies of the Exit 52 podcast with my dulcet tones to guide you along the way. As Pat McAfee really draws this out, and we're going to add another 2 hours to this broadcast because of him. All right, I'm locked in here. So Jonas Schaefer. The Ravens are on the clock. The top centers available: Sam Hecht, Connor Louque, Trey Zune. Top wide receivers: Chris Bell, Chris Brazell, Ted Hurst. Top DL: Dominique Orange, Grayson Holton. He doesn't name Xavier Harris there, but Matt Miller seems to think he is one of the top DL. So you got a pretty good litter to pick from. Pretty good litter to pick from for EDC. We'll see what he does. Coming up shortly. And there you have it. The Ravens are taking USC wide receiver Jacoby Lane. So they pass on the center. They pass on Sam Hecht. Do they love Corey Bullock that much? Not sure. But I guess the hope is that Sam Hecht falls, but a little bit on Jacoby Lane. So I already talked about him. I might have already read this report here, but I don't think I did. So 90th overall for Matt Miller. And I was talking about wanting to round this room out a little bit, getting a little bit more of a physical diversity, right? Because you got Zay Flowers at 5'9", you've got Bateman at about 5'11", maybe 6 foot if you want to stretch it. You've got Tez Walker, who is taller, but a little bit more of a strider, a Torrey Smith type potentially. But in terms of Jacoby Lane, here is what Matt Miller has on him. 6'4", 200 out of USC. Lane is a long, lean wide receiver, and at his length, he displays very good fluidity. He does a good job of setting up his routes, attacking defenders' leverage. He can sell routes to open up defenders' hips and break in the other direction. He has a large catch radius with high pointability and sure hands. Over the course of his collegiate career, he continuously was able to come down with acrobatic grabs. Though he is long, he displays the short area quickness to make defenders miss and displays natural skill with the ball in his hands after the catch. Lane has the ability to make his presence felt at all 3 levels of the defense. Be likey. Like that a lot. And I am seeing that Chris Bell had some injury stuff as well. Yeah, he had an ACL this year. I think I had already mentioned that actually. But yeah, like I said, Jacoby Lane was 8th out of this, 8 guys available left, or I guess 7 now that Branks went off the board, but according to Matt Miller, that's where he was at. But 90th overall ranking, so not a crazy reach at all. But it makes you think, what's the plan at center? Did they think Hecht has a chance to fall? Did they trade up to go and get him? Not sure. But I'll pull up a little bit more on Jacoby Lane here. Let's give him his moment. I'll pull up Zierlein on him. I love Zierlein. 6.2 prospect grade, will eventually be average starter. Hometown of Mesa, Arizona. Went to USC. A true junior. Production score 68, athleticism score 79, total score 75. Ran a 4.47 40. You like a 4.5 there when a guy is 6'4" and 200. 1.58 10-yard split, 40-inch vertical jump. Player bio. 2023 played in 6 games as a reserve. 2 touchdowns in Holiday Bowl versus Louisville. 2024 tied for 5th in the FBS with 12 receiving touchdowns. Las Vegas Bowl MVP. Played in all 13 games with 8 starts. 2025 honorable mention all Big Ten Conference. Played in 11 games with 9 starts. So Zierlein actually had him rounds 4 through 5. Lane is a red zone stalwart with elite strength and ball skills to mismatch cornerbacks when he's given room to work. He struggles playing through contact and sees an unusually high number of contested catches, but his catch radius, hand-eye coordination, and focus give him a substantial advantage as a ball winner. He might need releases schemed against heavy press teams, and certain limbs on the route tree will be dead for him. Lane has the confidence and talent to become a productive pro and red zone specialist, though. Interesting. Very interesting. Maybe this is your Roma Dunze. If you are Declan Doyle, maybe you're pounding the table for this guy. Strengths, runs downfield with gliding strides, or runs downfield routes with gliding strides, shows plus catch focus, and creates late separation when contested. Gets easy wins when pinning corners on fades, as I see a fade here on the NFL Network feed. One-handed catch for a touchdown. Makes impressive late adjustments for quick grabs, long arms, and big hands, created viral catches. Love a good viral catch. Light on his feet to slip the first tackler after the catch. Weaknesses: departure will be delayed by a jamming press. Routes are typically run at a single speed, slow to break off and open quickly on stops and comebacks. Coverage tends to blanket him through lateral break points. Really struggles to play through route contact. I'm getting whiffs of Tez Walker. I'm not going to lie. Feels like it might be a little bit redundant, but I don't hate doubling up because I like Tez Walker and I like what I'm seeing from Jacoby Lane right now. So maybe it's may the best man win situation. So good. Zach GR, at least he's a big wide receiver. There you go. That's what I'm saying. Build the basketball team. And then Zach also says they have to know that Hecht is going to keep falling and trade back in and grab him. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like at that point, it looks like there's more receivers available. So, like, if I were them, if I love Hecht that much, I probably would have just picked him there and then traded up for one of these receivers. But they probably just love Lane that much to stick and pick at 80. See what we got on the Twitter machine about him, if I can find something. Cole Jackson looking at his RAS. The Ravens will attempt to once again develop a toolsy yet underdeveloped wide receiver. A lot to like in his athletic profile, but can they develop a mid-round wide receiver? And that's kind of the question. It's kind of the question. New coaching staff in here, so I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I will give them the benefit of I'm not sure what they can do, good or bad. A lot of green on his RAS. I like that, 938. So good athleticism for sure. Yeah, RAS, very good actually from Kent Lee Platt. 939 out of a possible 10. This ranked 257 out of 4,196 wide receivers from 1987 to 2026. So the guy's a freak. I like it. This from Stone on April 23rd, so yesterday. Stone _2X on Twitter. Steve Smith said Jacoby Lane would be a really good fit in Baltimore. I love that endorsement. If 89 likes you, I like you. I like you a lot. Welcome to Baltimore, Jacoby Lane. We got Kadre Ishmael, the missile, tweeting the Michael Scott, no, please God, no gif about this one. So that's interesting. Jeff Z, Lane is a 6'4", 200-pound receiver. So he gives the Ravens receiving corps some much needed size. He had 99 catches for 1,363 yards and 18 touchdowns over 3 college seasons, average nearly 14 yards per reception. Jamison Hensley, Lane had the largest hands, 10.5 inches, and second largest wingspan, 80.75 inches among all wide receivers at the 2026 NFL Combine. But yeah, back to Lance Earline. So ran through the strengths. Yeah, no, I did the weaknesses as well. Come on, Jacob. Departure will be delayed by a jamming press. Routes are typically run at a single speed, slow to break off and open quickly on stops and comebacks. Coverage tends to blanket him through lateral break points, really struggles to play through route contact. Yeah, sounds like a long strider. One of those type of guys, man. It'll be fun to watch. It's a fun pick. They went very meat and potatoes with their first two. So this is throwing a bone to the Gen Z TikTok generation that needs to have their big plays, their big viral catches, as Lance put it. A little bit of excitement, you know. It's good to infuse that into the room. And they needed playmakers. Maybe not necessarily at receiver as badly, but man, losing Likely. I know he wasn't technically a starter or whatever, but the guy made a lot of big plays for you. You lost Kohler as well. Hopkins is gone. Maybe this could be a Hopkins type replacement. Maybe Tez Walker steps into that role. And as Zach GR says, now we get to see how this coaching staff can develop a wide receiver exactly. So it's not, like I said, it's not benefit of the doubt, but it's not doubt either. It's just, I don't know. We're going to have to see. But anyway, I've been going for about 2.5 hours here. Always a chance that the Ravens will jump back in and grab a guy here in the third round, but I will take the chance that they will not, and I will cut the stream here at a clean 2.5 hours. Appreciate everyone hanging with me here as the Ravens, like I said, make a nice meat and potatoes pick there with Zion Young at edge, a guy who can potentially help them out this year and hopefully can do even more than just help them out in the years beyond. And Jacoby Lane, who is another bit of a project pick potentially here at wide receiver in the third round. But who knows? Maybe he comes in pro ready. Maybe he steps into that third or fourth role comfortably and they're off to the races. I'd love to see that as well. Big Don Paul, before I get out of here, give Tez as many reps in the offseason as possible. No more chances for Bateman. I don't know, man. I feel like Bateman is kind of penciled in as number 2 right now. I know he had a really disappointing season last year. I can't make excuses for that, but he's shown some really good flashes in 2024 in particular. And even before that, it's just like, can he stay healthy for one thing? The best ability is availability, and he's more often than not been able to show that. So that's tough, and that's a bit of a gamble, and this feels like partially insurance for that and partially, like I said, a potential D-Hop replacement, a Tez Walker type that you can throw in there and hopefully make an impact quickly. I don't know. But yeah, there you have it. So the Ravens go guard, they go edge, they go wide receiver to start things out. Still need some help along the offensive line. I think they still need some depth along the defensive line. I can see them grabbing themselves a corner, but they still have, I believe, 8 picks to make here. Let me pull that up before we get out of here. What picks do they have left? Yeah, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks left to make. And ChatGPT is so funny, or whatever this, it might be the Google AI something, but they've got the Ravens picking Reggie Virgil, wide receiver, Texas Tech in the 4th round. They've got Damon Claiborne, running back, Wake Forest in the 5th round. Also in the 5th, they've got Isaiah World, offensive tackle out of Oregon. Lewis Moore, safety out of Indiana in the 5th at 162. Last 5th round pick, they've got Diego Pounds, offensive tackle out of Ole Miss. 211. Nijalik Kelly, edge out of UCF. Barry and Brown, wide receiver, LSU. And then additional compensatory pick. They just didn't give a pick. So nice work, AI. Nice work. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough. I think that will be that. Like I said, thanks again for everyone hanging with me here, bearing with me as I ran this thing solo. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the Ravens pick. Hit us up on social media to let us know at Exit52 Podcast on X and on Instagram. You can find me at Jake Louque. That is LOUQUE on X. If you liked what you heard tonight, subscribe to us here on YouTube. Leave a comment, leave a like, all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you again very, very soon. Enjoy your weekend and enjoy the rest of the draft. We'll talk to you later.